Have you ever wondered why simple games like Cookie Clicker can be so addictive? Today we'll create our own version of a clicker game. Since it's December, all of the upgrades will have a Christmas theme to match the festive season. By the end of this video, you will refresh your UI skills, learn how to build smooth clicker mechanics, and pick up a few tips to make your game more fun and interesting. Let's get started. Let's start by creating a new Unity project. I will go with Unity version 6, the newest one, and then I will go with Universal Render Pipeline 2D. I will name my project Gingerbread Clicker without Unity Cloud, and yeah, let's create it. While Unity is loading, I will show you the design I've prepared. As you can see, we'll use mainly UI components. This whole left pane and the cookie itself and text here is all UI, but we'll also use just a little bit of sprites for the background and later on for this fun effect to make the game a bit more appealing. I've also prepared all the assets that you will need to recreate this interface. It contains both some fonts and graphics. You can download them for free. Just go to the link under this video to follow along. Okay, in the meanwhile, Unity has now loaded. So the first thing I'll do, I will import this whole clicker assets folder into the project. And let's set up some basic components on our scene. First, I will create a background. To do that, let's find this clicker assets, graphics, background, and just drag it into the scene. That way we'll create a new sprite that will be always in the background. And obviously, on top of that, we'd like to create UI. To create UI that will be displayed on top of everything of our game, just right click anywhere in the hierarchy and select UI canvas. That creates this canvas. We can view it by just double clicking on it. And let's quickly create a new image. So that will be new image in the center. You can see how it looks like in the game. Whenever we update this image position, it always stays on top of our background. I will also change one setting in the canvas right here. I would like to change the canvas color settings. So currently this white box will resize with the screen size. So when I make this game full screen, you can see that while the background has resized to the full size, the box stays the same with the exact same dimensions. To make it scale proportionally to the rest of the screen, here in the canvas color I will change scale mode to scale with screen size, and then I will change match to maximum height. Now you can see that when I will resize this game view, the box will stay with the same size. Okay, and that's it for the basic setup. Now let's move on to designing UI structure. Before we begin, I would like to say that we'll be going quite fast with the UI building. If you're not comfortable with Unity UI system or you need more detailed explanations, go check out my 1-hour video that introduces UI basics. So, our UI will consist of 2 sections. I will maybe go back to this project and create a screenshot of it so that we can have a reference to it all the time. Just like that. You can see it consists of 2 sections, the left side with the sidebar and the right side with Gingerbread itself and some counters. We'll start with designing the left side. I have this image here. We can actually use it to place it on the left side of the screen, just like that. And let's resize it so that it will take up around 1/3 of a screen. Now let's change background of this sprite. I will just click on this red background. One thing here, actually, we should do it at the very start after the importing. I noticed that some of those sprites have been imported as multiple. Let's just click all of them, select all of them, and change sprite mode from multiple to single, because all of those images represent only one graphic, so there is no need to have sprite mode set to multiple. Okay, now once this is set, we probably need to fix our background. Yeah, and in our image, I will call it sidebar. I will assign our red background sprite. This sprite is a square, but as you can see, it nicely has been resized to fill the whole container size. Next up, let's create this fun red-white candy cane that separates the side panel from the game itself. So inside of the sidebar, I will right-click UI and create new image. I will place it here on the right so that it will cover the entire height of this container. And I will set its image to candy cane. By default, this image is stretched to the entire height of this container, but what I would like to do is to change image type to tiled. And if you don't like the size of it, you can modify pixels per unit multiplier to make it more dense if you'd like. I will maybe stick to 1.5. Next up, let's work on this wood element that displays store info. I will once again create new UI image. Let's call it header. I will set its graphic to board image and resize it just like that and place it here, maybe just a little bit smaller, a bit of rotation. Yeah, I think that's nice. I think that it's also a good idea that this wooden board will cast a bit of shadow downwards. We can use built-in shadow component in Init UI, shadow, but it's extremely primitive. As you can see, it just displays this square shadow, I would say. There's no way to make it blurred, so I will remove that shadow and instead create one more image that will use a gradient image. So I will call it gradient, assign gradient image, and as you can see, this is just an image that goes from black to transparent black. I can use it to place it right here so that it will simulate a shadow that this wooden board is casting. Remember that UI components are very picky when it comes to their placement in hierarchy. In this case, if we'd like to place gradient behind the plank, there is no way to change the order in layer or something like that, which is in sprites. To change its layer's position, just drag this gradient above the header in hierarchy. That way, the gradient is placed behind the wooden board. Okay, and the final one, let's recreate this upgrade button. So I will create one more, maybe empty game object this time, and resize it so that it will more or less represent this green box. I will obviously call it upgrade item, and inside of it I will create one more image which will be our background of this button. Here let's select our button sprite. I would like to resize the square to nicely fill the entire size of this container, but as you can see, when I start to resize it, it just resizes this rounded square and it doesn't look nice. To fix that, we need to set up something called sprite splitting. Go to your button in Assets, then click Open Sprite Editor. Now we need to define what are the edges of this button and which sections we should stretch or which sections we should keep with the same size. So if I will do something like that, I will stretch bottom green line, left one, right one, and top one to this size to create just kind of a square in the middle. That will mean that the center will always be stretched. All of 4 corners will stay with the same size, and the sides will be stretched either horizontally or vertically. It is always a good practice to make sure that this square is with the correct size. So I will change those values here to make them 100 from all sides. And let's click apply, go back to our background image, change image type to sliced, and now start resizing it. As you can see, that creates this nice effect that however we will stretch this image, it always looks nice. If you're a bit confused about this logic and you'd like to learn more, check out the video you can see right now on the screen. It very nicely explains how sprite splitting works. Finally, I don't like how big those rounded corners are. As you can see in the design, they're a bit smaller, so I will just modify pixels per unit multiplier to maybe again 1.5, and that will require us to also resize this component a bit. Okay, something like that. I'm quite happy how it looks. Okay, next up, let's add all the remaining images. So the next one will be character image, which will represent our character graphic. Okay, let's do something like that. I'm quite happy how it looks. And then the second one will be a very small gingerbread image. You can see it here, which represents the currency. This is the amount of gingerbreads you need to spend to purchase this upgrade. So I will create one more image. Let's call it currency and set gingerbread image. I will make it way smaller, something like that, and place it here, even smaller, I think. Okay, when you look at the preview, you might have noticed that this gingerbread looks awful, I should say. When it's full screen, the effect is okay, but when someone has smaller resolution, it becomes very pixelated and looks ugly. This is because Unity does not handle scaling large images quite well. By large image, I mean this gingerbread is 512 by 512. If I would import it at its full size, it looks something like that. It's very large, but we want to scale it to this very small element. To fix that, to make this small element way more appealing, go to the gingerbread import asset, and here select generate meep map enable. That way, now Unity has generated multiple smaller versions of the same image and is using them whenever they are needed, like in this case when this image is very small. Okay, this upgrade item is done for now. We'll add text in just a second, but now let's focus on the right side. I will create new empty game object, call it right side. I will resize it so that it will actually fill this whole right side of the screen. Yeah, that's nice. So yeah, inside of the right side we should create a few components. The first one will be gingerbread itself. I will assign its gingerbread image, make it a bit bigger, and add a bit of a rotation maybe. Another one will be white glow, which I've created to make this ginger a bit nicer to look at. And this is this white glow. I will make it way bigger, place it behind the gingerbread. Of course, also let's name it glow, and maybe reduce its transparency. The easiest way to do that is to click on the image color and change its alpha. The effect might be subtle, but without it, it looks way worse. And then of course we have text here, more on that in a second. The last thing will be another gradient here at the top, so that the text will be clearly visible in front of the background. I will resize the gradient like that, change the image. Nice, you can see this gradient coming from the top. And we have the problem with layer ordering once more. So we should place this right side below the plank, so below the whole sidebar. I will just move the right side up here. Now everything has the correct layer order. Okay, the very last thing is to take this background, which is not part of UI, but it's right here, and to move it a bit right, so that this Christmas tree won't be below the gingerbread. I will move it like that, and maybe to increase contrast, I will change this image color to a bit darker one. Something like that. Now you can clearly focus on our gingerbread to click on it. Okay, and that's a great base for our game. Now let's go and add texts. Time to finish the rest of the design with texts. In my old tutorials I've been using now legacy text component. You can actually still access it here, plus UI legacy text, but Unity advises to no longer use that, and that's fair. It's quite old, it lacks a lot of features, and most importantly it sometimes looks blurry on some bigger screens. So instead of text, we'll use Text Mesh Pro. Don't be scared with its name. It was the name of the package with the text component that Unity has bought and now incorporated into the Unity editor itself. So let's create our first text component. The first time you will use Text Mesh Pro, this window will pop up. We just need to click this button to import Text Mesh Pro Essentials. That's it. Close this window. Now let's focus on this text. We'll use this text maybe for our right side, so let's make it a right side child, and I will rename it to balance. By balance I mean money balance of the current gingerbread count. I will place it right here. Here on the right in the inspector you have usual text tools like alignment, so I will place it in the center, middle, something like that. Then we can change the text itself. I think that just for test purposes, let's say we have 1200 cookies. And I would like also to change the font. But even though we have two fonts imported here, when I go to the font asset, you can see that we don't have those, for example, luminary font available to be selected. Why is that? Well, with Text Mesh Pro we first need to create font asset that will allow us to import more fonts than the default one. To do that, go to Window, Text Mesh Pro, Font Asset Creator. It's very easy, trust me. So here in the source font, just select our luminary font. Remember that it needs to be imported somewhere in the assets. We leave all of those settings by default. I will click Generate Font Atlas. That generated this font atlas with all the characters we'll be using. Now just click Save and save in the same location. Now in our Text Mesh Pro text, we can actually select this newly created font asset and have our nicely looking font. Let me bring up the design once more. So in the design we have a bit more space for this font. It's just slightly bigger. And yeah, I think it looks nice. Let's duplicate it once more. This time it will be balance label. It will be displayed here. It will be a static text of just gingerbreads. Okay, and finally below that we'll also have one more small text that will indicate what is the current idle income rate. So let's create income text, place it below. Let's make it way smaller. And here I would like to use the different font I imported, which is the Slabo 27. So once again, go to Window, Text Mesh Pro, Font Asset Creator, and let's generate font atlas for this font. And now I can use it right here in the inspector. Its example value will be 0.2 per second. Okay, time for the upgrade section. We'll start with this store label. So I will actually duplicate the balance, just right click duplicate or Ctrl-Command-D. I will place it as a child of the header, like that. I will match the header rotation, so I will reset rotation to 0 and change its text to just store. Next up, the upgrade item. In upgrade item, we need to create one more text mesh pro, which will be our name, elf, with luminary font. I will make it a bit smaller. And also I will create this income info text, which will be displayed in the top right hand corner. Let's change its alignment to right, change its font to Slabo, and I will type something like 2.0.1 per second, which indicates that we currently have 2 elves and each one produces 0.1 income per second. I will make it just slightly smaller, maybe change its position, and yeah, I'm happy about how it looks. The final one, which I forgot about, is this currency value. It should be displayed with Slabo font. Let's say it will display 100. I will make it a bit smaller and place it right here. Okay, I think that our upgrade looks nice. Whole left sidebar looks very nice. And yeah, we implemented all the remaining UI elements that were needed to make our scene nicely looking and of course functional, because now we have all the texts with all logic information. If you'd like to learn more about building UI in Unity, and most importantly how to make this UI responsive for more screens, because currently it is not. If I will change 16:9 aspect to, let's say, 16:10, you can see that some things are clipping. I can teach you all of that in my Master Unity UI course, link in the description. So that's it. Now our UI is mostly ready and we can start implementing some logic. We'll start with adding the most basic logic, which is clicking on the gingerbread and increasing its count. Let's start by creating a new script. So I will create scripts folder, and inside of it new mono behavior script called game manager. Before we edit it, let's also create a new game object on the scene. It doesn't matter where is it. I will also call it game manager and assign this script to it. Now I can double click on the script to edit it. Inside of this script, let's create a new function called click action. And obviously this action will be called whenever we click on the gingerbread. To count how many clicks we already have and how many gingerbreads we've collected, I will also create another variable, int variable called count, which equals 0 by default. Whenever we click the gingerbread, we obviously want to increase this count, so I will just type count ++. And finally, when we increase the count of our gingerbreads, we also want to display that count on the screen. So first we need to get the reference of the text that displays gingerbreads count. To do that, let's type tmp as text mesh pro _text My editor of choice, which is Visual Studio Code, already suggests me to also import Text Mesh Pro. If your editor does not do that, just manually import Text Mesh Pro. Let's call it count text. And then in the click action, we can in theory just type count text, that text equals count to string. But I'm not happy about mixing logic and UI displaying. What I would suggest you is to at least create separate function called update UI. And the only job of this function will be to update any elements on the screen, no matter what's the logic. So I will move this count text here, and I will just call this update UI after changing the count of gingerbreads. Okay, that's nice. Let's save the script. In Unity, we should be able to assign our text, but we are not able. Why? Okay, because this component is not public. There are two ways to do that. You can either type public and it will display in the editor, or you can just type in the square brackets serialize field. Both ways are nice, but the intended way to do it is via serialize field, because that produces way cleaner code. Now we have this count text to assign in the game manager, so I will find it in canvas, right side balance. Let's assign it. And how we can trigger this click action when clicking a gingerbread. First, we also need to make it public. This time just use public keyword, save, and in Unity find our gingerbread. Let's add a new button component to it, and in button we have onClick event that whenever the gingerbread will be clicked, we'll select game manager, click action. I hope it will now work. Let's press play and test it out. I will click on gingerbread, and you can immediately see how the gingerbread's count is being increased. There are a few problems still. Let's fix them one by one. The first one is that when I start the game, we still have our 1200 placeholder here. Only when I click the gingerbread, it starts the correct count. To fix that, we can use our update UI method at the start of the game. So I will use start method, which obviously in Unity is triggered whenever this component is being loaded, and here I will just call update UI. Now after this change, when I start the game, you can see that we no longer have this placeholder, but gingerbreads are resetted to 0. The second thing I'd like to tackle is clicking the gingerbread itself. Currently it's not very satisfying. At least we have this dark tint, but I would like to make this small animation that like simulates a click of the gingerbread. To do that, we can quite easily create such animation. Go to the gingerbread, and here in the button, notice that by default we have color tint transition. It's nice, you see that in action. When we click on the gingerbread, it changes its color, but instead of color tint, I would like to use animation. With animation, we can click this auto-generate animation. I suggest you to create a new folder called animations, gingerbread controller, that's all right, save it. And now we have a new animator. I can double click on this animator to open animator tab. You can see that automatically created 5 different animation clips. Each animation clip indicates different state of the button. So we have normal clip, highlighted, so when the mouse is over the gingerbread, and of course pressed, which is whenever we click the button. Let's edit normal animation. To do that, let's go to animation tab. If you don't have animation tab, go to window, animation. Here in animation, we need to define what will be the state of this game object. whenever it's either normal, highlighted or pressed. With normal, we need to define its size. Obviously, we'd like to use the same size as it is now, but we need to tell Unity that. So click Add Property, Rect Transform, Scale. I would like to have the scale set as 1, that's okay. We don't need any extra frames, we just want to have first frame and that's it, so I'll remove those keyframes. Then let's go to highlighted one. This time I would like to change the size a bit, so instead of 1 I will type 1.02. That will make this gingerbread just a little bit larger. You can click preview to check that. Again, let's remove those keyframes. And finally, let's also modify pressed state. And here we'll go way more crazy. So we change the value to 0.85, let's say. We'll preview that in a second. Let's remove those keyframes. Let's check how it looks. Yeah, it's way pressed, and it should nicely indicate that the mouse has pressed on the cookie and we just gained another count of cookies. Okay, let's press play and preview if all of those animation setup we've created looks nicely in the game. I can now hover my mouse over it. It makes it just a little bit larger, but when I click on it, the gingerbread becomes smaller and indicates clicking. Still we have problem with the speed of this animation, it's extremely slow. To fix that, go back to the animator and here click on every transition. You can't select them, it won't work, trust me. Click on each one separately and go to settings, transition duration and set it to maybe 0.06. That should be way faster. I will copy that and paste it to every transition. And now let's preview this change. Now our transition is way faster and in my opinion actually looks quite satisfying. Okay, so great, now our player can start the game, click on the gingerbread to increase gingerbread's count, but of course that itself will be extremely boring, so let's introduce upgrades. Our first upgrade will be this elf that will produce cookies for us. Let's create new script called store upgrade and add it to the upgrade item game object. I will now open this store upgrade script and yeah, let's remove start update. So here first we need to design upgrades income logic. For this tutorial I decided to copy cookie clicker implementation, which is quite simple. Later on I will talk a bit more about all the math behind it, but for now let's just introduce those three values. The first one is public int start price. Next one, public float upgrade price multiplier. And the last one will be public float cookies per upgrade. Also, because we'll need to keep track of the current level of this store upgrade, let's also create int level equals 0 variable, and that will just keep track of the current level of this upgrade. The idea is that this will be the initial price. Let's say that to purchase it for the first time we'll need to spend 15 gingerbreads. Once we'll purchase this upgrade for the first time, then the price will equal start price plus upgrade price multiplier to the power of current level. Let's implement this logic with those two functions. So the first one will be int calculate price. So as I said, int price will be equal to start price times math power. So first upgrade price multiplier to the power of level. Because price is integer, we need to round it up, so I'll once more use mathf dot round to int, and I will pass in this value, and finally let's return this price because this function returns integer. Another function I'd like to create will be public float calculate income per second. Calculating income will be very simple because all we need to do, we need to type return cookies per upgrade. So how many cookies per level per second will grant. By default, let's say that this will be 0.1. So cookies per upgrade times level. Now that we have all those values, it's time to display them on the upgrade card. I will create new header, and it will contain two components. It will be text mesh pro text, obviously, that is price text, and the second one will be income info text. Then again, let's create update UI function, the same as in the game manager, void update UI. So in UI, we'd like to assign our price text. So that will be price text dot text equals calculate price to string. And also we'd like to assign this income info text. It will be a bit more complicated because it will be level to string plus x plus cookies per upgrade plus per second. It will look something like this. So let's say 5 level times 0.5 per second. That is the idea. Okay, and that's it for our update UI. The same as before, let's also put this update UI in the start method. And let's test it out in Unity. In the upgrade item, we have those values already assigned. For price multiplier, I will input 1.15. I will explain later what this value means, but more importantly, we need to assign price text, which will be, I guess this is price text, right? So I will call it price. So price text and income info text. And let's press play to see if those values will be updated. Yeah, now you can see that the cost is 15 and we have 0 elves times 0.1 per second. It all looks nice. Now let's work on the clicking action. So to implement clicking of this button, we need to add component called button, the same one with the gingerbread. We can set target graphic to background. That way our color tint will work properly. And obviously we also need to assign on-click action, but we don't have that yet. So let's implement that in the script. I will create new public void function called click action and connect it to the button component in Unity. And now, what should happen when we click this purchase? Here is where we need to start working between scripts, because we need to make sure that player has enough gingerbreads to be able to purchase this store upgrade. So in the game manager, I will create new public void function called purchase action. It will take int cost as an input value. So here we'll pass in what is the current cost of the store upgrade, and then we'll be able to check it if we have enough gingerbreads. So to check it, I will type if count, so current value of gingerbreads, is greater or equal to cost. Then let's deduct this cost from current count. Let's also update UI, because that will update the public text of the cookies count. And in this case, return true. Okay, this is actually something I just came up with. Instead of void, we'll change this purchase action function to a Boolean return type. That way, we'll immediately get feedback if player has enough amount of cookies to purchase this action. If true, then we already deduct them and we go on with the purchase logic. If not, we just return false. Okay, and now let's make use of this function in the store upgrade. First, we need to get the reference. So I will create new header, managers, game manager. Here, let's also quickly create header to make all the properties tidy. So generator values. So in click action, all I want to do is to first get information if I can actually purchase this item. So first I need to calculate its price. Calculate price. Then I need to get information if the purchase is successful. Equals game manager dot purchase action with the price value. And if the purchase is success, then we level up our generator and we update UI to reflect this change. Okay, that's it. Let's save the script, go back to Unity. In upgrade item, let's assign our game manager and let's press play. After all of this coding, this is our UI. This is the elf. We can't buy it just yet, so I need to get some gingerbreads. And now I am able to click on it, and that updates the UI and shows that we have one elf. Then I can buy one more. If I don't have enough gingerbreads, even when I click, nothing happens. Now, time to introduce logic that will actually add those idle cookies. Okay, so time to add calculating player upgrades. In Game Manager, I would like to have a function that will be triggered every second and will calculate idle gingerbreads. So I will create new void idle calculate. And to trigger it, your first idea might be to create an update method and put it in here. Oops. Idle calculate. But the problem with this implementation is that update runs every frame of the game, so we'll get way too many cookies in this implementation. My solution is to make use of built-in variable called time since level load. As the description says, this is time in seconds since the last scene finished loading. So in our case, this is basically time in seconds since the game has started. I will also create another variable that will be float, and it will be called next time check, by default 1. Using that, I will check if game is running at least for 1 second. In yes, then execute idle calculate. So if next time check is smaller than time since level load, then execute idle calculate. Of course, once it's executed, we need to add another second to this next time check so that it will be repeated 60 times per second. I will type next time check equals time since level load plus 1. Okay, nice. Now time to focus on idle calculate function. In this function, I need to get a sum of all upgrades. For now, we only have one, but let's predict the future and immediately create an array of store upgrades so that later on we'll be able to count all of them. I will create new serialized field. It will be type store upgrade. That's array. Let's call it store upgrade simply. And in idle calculate, I will create for each loop, and for each store upgrade in store upgrades, we'll create a sum. Oops. And in this loop, I will type sum plus equals store upgrade that calculate income per second. This is the function we've created here previously. Okay, now that we have our sum, let's display it on the screen. So I will create reference to another text. This time it will be income text. And here we should be able to type income text.text equals sum to string. But again, I would suggest you not to mix and match logic and UI. So we should move this here to update UI and trigger update UI. But you can see the problem is that we don't have reference to the sum here. So my idea is to create a variable called last income value. Here in idle calculate, we assign to this variable our sum, and finally in update UI we'll use last income value to display last income value on the screen, and we should add per second. Okay, let's save the script, go back to Unity. In Game Manager we need to assign two things. First one is income text, so this one, and then store upgrades. For now we only have one, so just drag it here to populate array. And fingers crossed, save everything, press play, and let's check how it works. I can now click on gingerbreads, purchase our elf, and you can immediately see that now we get 0.1 gingerbread per second, and if we wait long enough, this number should go up. It's not going up because obviously we forgot to change the balance of our cookies. So here in idle calculate, let's type count plus equals sum. It's underlined because count is currently int variable, so I will change it to float with one change to always show only the rounded number of this count. So here I will type mathf that round to int count. Okay, now everything should work. Just for testing purposes, not to wait too long, I will go to upgrade item and modify cookies per upgrade to 2, so it will be a bit quicker. And now I can click on gingerbreads, purchase elf, and notice how our 2 cookies per second work. I can buy another elf maybe, and now our growth is much faster. But to be honest, I'm not really happy. I'm actually quite annoyed how the refresh of the gingerbreads is every second, and also when you purchase elf, notice that the income is also a bit delayed. I think we can fix that by introducing a more frequent updates of this value. To do that, I will add new variable, serialize field. It will be kind of a setting, so I would like to show it in the inspector. It will be called updates per second. By default, let's try with 5, so that it will be refreshed every 0.2 seconds. To make use of this variable, we need to place it in 2 places. First one here in update, we'd like to do it every 1 divided by updates per second. And here we also need to divide count sum by this value, updates per second. We won't be doing that for last income value because this value is used mainly for the UI, and here player should be able to see that it's actually, like for example, 2 gingerbreads per second instead of seeing 0.4 every 0.2 seconds. It doesn't make sense. That way it should be way more readable. Let's test it out. I will press play. Once again, let's change cookies per upgrade to 2 and let's purchase our elf. Now you can see that the updates are way more frequent and we have 2 cookies per second. Let's buy another elf. Yeah, now everything looks way better. Another issue is that I never know if I have enough cookies to upgrade my elf. To fix that, I would like to make use of our button component. In button there is this toggle called interactable. When we toggle it, we can't click on the button anymore, and it also has this nice transparency effect. To make use of it, in our store upgrade script, let's create a reference, public button. Make sure to import Unity engine.ui to make use of button. Let's call it simply button. And here in update UI, I will type bool can afford equals game manager dot count. Count is not public, I guess. Yes, it's not public, but I will hide that in inspector. So that count is greater or equal to calculate price. If we can afford it, let's type button that interactable equals can afford. The problem is that this UI is only updated at the start and actually it will immediately become disabled. So to fix that, in the game manager, whenever we go through each store upgrades in this loop, we can type store upgrade dot update UI, which is once again not public. Let's make it public. Update UI. Now everything should work. Let's go back to Unity. In upgrade item, make sure that the button is assigned and let's press play. Now, if we can't purchase elf, it is disabled, but once we have enough gingerbreads, it becomes visible. You can clearly see that, how it works. It often provides a very subtle opacity animation, so it looks very nice. Okay, so now that we have upgrades fully working, let's add all of the remaining ones to our game. First, I will create prefab out of this upgrade item so that we can use it multiple times. In assets, I will create a new folder called prefabs and let's drag upgrade item here. Then let's duplicate our upgrade item a few times. So I can either right click, click duplicate, or just click Command D or Control D. But doing that manually is not the best idea because I can mess up some spacing or even the position. To better manage that, I would suggest you to create new empty game object, resize it to more or less area where you'd like to have all of your upgrade items, and add component called vertical layout group. Once we move all of those upgrade items to it, you can see that now they are nicely arranged. We can also modify the bounds of this layout group, and that will also automatically align all the child items. Of course, there are way more settings, but the default ones work nice for us. I will just call it list of upgrade items. Okay, now a bit more boring part. We need to update all of the values. So for example, for the second item, I would like to change the image to snowman. We can click set native size, but that will stretch it very large. I think we can just make it a bit wider. Then change the name, of course, to snowman. And to update price and other values, we just need to update it here. I suggest you to start with the values from cookie clicker. For the second upgrade item, it is base price of 100 and cookies per upgrade is 0.5. I will now pause the video, update all of the remaining images and properties and get back to you. Okay, here are the updated values. You can of course find all the images below the video, and all the values I've entered are visible also in the link below. I shared with you a small table with the default values from Cookie Clicker. Finally, as a reminder, we have this array in Game Manager that stores all store updates. So let's drag all newly created store upgrades here. And it should automatically update all of our purchasing logic to make them work. Time for a quick test. I will buy a bunch of cookies to buy elf, and now I should have enough cookies to buy snowman, and yeah, now snowman is also purchasable, so now we have a higher income. Perfect! All of our store items now work perfectly. Logic in our game works great, but now let's dive into the maths behind our implementation and check if we can make it even better. So I've created this spreadsheet that sums up all the logic that is in our game. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this logic we've implemented is based on Cookie Clicker game. In Clicker idle games, we need to balance between production rates, which here I indicated as income, and costs. The idea is that at the beginning of the game, buying upgrades should be quick and easy, while later on, price of each upgrade will greatly surpass the income. Here is the chart with the current values for the first elf upgrade. So as you might remember, the starting price is 15 and the starting income is 0.1, and here is this mysterious value which I will describe in just a second. As you can see, price, which is the green one, grows exponentially, while the upgrade value grows linearly. I should mention that this chart on the right is just a zoom in of this chart. I can actually change scale to maybe 100, so we'll see what's going on here. In Cookie Clicker, the difference between income and buying price is very big. One of the reasons is that Cookie Clicker also has multiple upgrades that over time speed up your growth. Here I've created another sheet that represents that. So for example, in Cookie Clicker, after you reach level 10 of your upgrade, you can increase multiplayer to 2, then when you reach 25 you have multiplayer of 4, and so on and so on. It still does not change this chart dramatically. It is still very far off from the price, but this is just one of many ways that Cookie Clicker manages that. So one thing to note down for the future is to maybe add such functionality that will make your upgrades more powerful over time. Next one is quite obvious, just tweaking those values of income and price. Here I have some experiments sheet. So for example, here I can tweak income to maybe give more resource over time and maybe lower the price so that the price will be way closer to the income. You can experiment with those values, and I think that this spreadsheet is a good start to visualize how those values will work in your game. But the final critical value is this multiplier, which I should rather call the rate of growth. It defines how fast or slow our price will increase. Cookie Clicker uses value of 1.15, and as you can see, that immediately changes this price graph. Based on articles I've read, the value should be somewhere between 115 and 107. Based on some analysis, this is the most optimal range to make your game fun. So now let's check what will happen if I will modify this multiplier. Let's say I will multiply it to 1.08 maybe. Now I've created a slider out of this value, so you can see how we can gradually change this price plot. And you can see that if this value is very low, we can even achieve the effect that the price at some point becomes lower than the income, so that you can immediately purchase next upgrade after you get income every second. So just to show you an example, I also got the values from Adventure Capitalist game. So these are the actual values for the first upgrade income generator, let's call it. In this case, the starting price is 4, income is 1.67, and this multiplier value, which is this rate of growth, is 1.07. And as you can see, the effect of that is very interesting, because for the most part of this chart, the income surpasses the price of this item, so that, for example, right here around 27 level, I'm pretty sure that you can immediately purchase 2 upgrades after getting 1 income. It's obviously up to you to experiment with those values. There isn't any golden formula for a clicker game. You just need to follow some basic principles and do a ton of testing. As for the differences between different upgrades, this is the table that represents cookie clicker upgrades. Basically, price goes up about 5 times and the income goes up from 4 to even 8 times. You need to experiment with the game pacing so that player won't be bored along the way. Last final note, remember that over time clicking the gingerbread with a mouse won't have any sense, since you will be earning hundreds of gingerbreads every second, while clicking gives you only 1 gingerbread. To fix that, we can make use of last income value, and here in click action we can, for example, type count plus equals last income value times 0.02f, which will mean that we'll take 2% of the last income value, and over time, once we grow bigger with our upgrades, our click power will also increase. I've experimented a bit and defined those values for our game. Remember that you can tweak those values right in the inspector, including the growth rate. You can find this spreadsheet with all the sheets I presented today under this video. I will also link very helpful articles that allowed me to present all of that theory to you. Now that the game is complete, let's add some finishing touches to create better experience. So first issue I'd like to resolve is that this list on the left. We can say that it lacks mystery. You can immediately see all the upgrades that are coming. Let's fix that by making portraits black when they are not unlocked, and also disabling the name of the character to introduce some kind of suspense. In store upgrade, I will add new variable here. It will be called public image. Make sure to import it from unityengine.ui, which will be called character image. In update UI, let's create new boolean variable, which will be called is purchased. And to do that, we just check if the level is greater than 0. Then we can type character image dot color equals, and then based on is purchased. If is purchased is true, then the color will be just white. Otherwise, color dot black, which creates this fun effect of a dimmed character. When it comes to the name, we also need to create one more variable. It will be text variable. Let's call it upgrade name text, and let's also create a setting which will be a string upgrade name. Here in upgrade UI, once again, I will type upgrade name text dot text, and depending on is purchased, it's either upgrade name string variable or 3 question marks. In Unity, now we need to assign this upgrade name value for each character. And we need to assign those two images because this is a prefab. We can go into the prefab and here assign our image and upgrade name text. Save it, go back and press play to test if everything now works. Yeah, as you can see, by default all of the characters are locked, and only when we purchase the first character it unlocks and shows its name and character image. I will now quickly get some more gingerbreads and also unlock the second character, and now you can see that we unlocked the snowman. There is one last issue. I think that the game looks just a little bit static, and we can fix that by adding some kind of animation in the background. You might remember that at the beginning I've also imported the stripes graphic. I think it will be a nice fit, so we'll import that as a sprite actually. So let's focus on our background and let's add stripes here. Let's center them behind the gingerbread, make them just a bit larger to fill up the entire screen, and change its transparency so that it will have a nice look, not just overwhelm the whole experience. Okay, I think that's nice. Also, I think it will be way better if it will slowly rotate around the gingerbread. So to do that, I will create new script called simply rotate around. Assign this script to our stripes game object, and inside of it let's remove start and create new float variable called speed. And here in the update function I will call transform.rotate new vector 3 1, so that will rotate around z axis times time.delta time times speed. This is just extremely simple way to rotate any object around. I will make this float serializable field so that we'll be able to tweak it in the inspector. Now when we press play, you can see how our stripes slowly animate. If that's too fast or too slow for you, you can tweak this speed element. I think this free value is quite ideal. It doesn't overwhelm but gives a nice background. And that's it, a small effect but makes gameplay a bit nicer. There are of course many more things you can change or animate. If you'd like to learn a bit more advanced techniques, how you can animate your user interface, I have a full chapter focused on that in my Master Unity UI course, link in the description. So what can you do next to improve this game? Here are just a few ideas. As mentioned previously, you can add purchasable upgrades or skills. You can also implement a mechanic that will randomly spawn some kind of object on the screen and will require player to quickly click on it. Also, some idle games allow you to click on upgrades instead of having just one major object to click. There might be also some kind of periodic events that will alter the gameplay a bit. If you want to download graphic assets as well as finished project, go ahead and click the link in the description. Thanks a lot to my awesome patrons for supporting me. See you soon!